Hey everyone, welcome back. And today we're diving deep into something pretty heavy hitting, the LA wildfires. It's a story that's been all over the news lately, and I think it's something we need to unpack a bit more.
Right.
I mean, the headlines are pretty scary, but we've got a stack of articles here from the Los Angeles Times, Hindustan Times, and Yahoo News. And I think what we want to do today is go beyond just the headlines and really look at how this is affecting everyday people.
What's really striking about this is how it's not just these, remote forests or hillsides that are burning. These fires are ripping right through neighborhoods and businesses, places people know and love.
Yeah, and the LA Times articles really paint this picture of chaos. You've got people fleeing their homes, grabbing whatever they can, and these iconic landmarks and businesses are literally in the path of these flames.
Oh.
We're talking places like the Getty Villa, the Palisades Village shopping center, even popular restaurants like
Yeah.
the Real Inn.
Right. And while those places might sound familiar, I think it's important to remember that this is about so much more than just property damage. We're talking about thousands of ordinary people being evacuated from their homes, facing this unimaginable loss and uncertainty. The sources describe scenes of just pure chaos, traffic jams, abandoned cars, families running for their lives with just the clothes on their backs.
It's just heartbreaking. And then you add to that these intense Santa Ana winds they're talking about. I mean, they sound almost hurricane force, which I can't even imagine. And that's what's turning these small sparks into these massive infernos.
Absolutely. And the Santa Ana winds are a natural part of California's climate, but the sources suggest that climate change could be making them even more intense, creating these perfect conditions for these fires to spread so rapidly. And then when you factor in California's ongoing drought, you've got a recipe for disaster.
And then it's the firefighters, those everyday heroes who are caught right in the middle of this inferno. And it sounds like they're completely overwhelmed. The articles mention hydrants running dry, aircraft being grounded because of these strong winds, and even out-of-state help is struggling to keep up.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, were the city and its residents truly prepared for something of this magnitude? The LA Times quotes some city officials, and they're admitting that they were caught off guard by the ferocity of these fires, which really highlights potential gaps in resource allocation and communication.
And it's crazy because the impact goes so much further, than just the initial flames.
Yeah, actually, the Hindustan Times compares these fires to the 1994 Northridge earthquake, just in terms of the widespread disruption they're causing.
Wow, and what's really heartbreaking is how this is affecting families who are already struggling. The LA Times talks about a mobile home park in Sylmar that was completely destroyed, leaving so many residents with absolutely nothing. And these were people who likely had limited resources to begin with.
It's a tragic example of how these disasters so often hit the most vulnerable the hardest. They might not have the same access to information resources, support networks to cope with such a sudden and devastating loss.
Right, and it's not just about losing their homes either. It's the ripple effects on jobs, education, healthcare.
Yeah.
The LA Times mentions that businesses in the affected areas have been forced to close, impacting the livelihoods of countless employees. Schools have had to cancel classes because of safety concerns disrupting the education of thousands of students. And hospitals are being overwhelmed with patients suffering from smoke inhalation and other fire-related injuries.
Yeah, the sources describe this sense of collective trauma that's kind of settling over the city. The LA Times has this really powerful quote from a resident who says, "It feels like we're living in a war zone."
Wow, that's heavy. And that feeling of displacement and uncertainty really comes through in all the articles. The Yahoo News piece talks about residents being forced to evacuate multiple times as the fire lines shift, and they just never know if they'll have a home to return to.
It's a terrifying thought, and even for those who manage to escape the flames, the aftermath is incredibly challenging. The LA Times describes residents lining up at shelters struggling to access basic necessities like food, water, and medical care.
It's just a reminder that the recovery process can be just as daunting as the disaster itself, with these long-lasting physical, emotional, and financial consequences for those affected. It's clear that these fires are a wake-up call for everybody. Not just for Los Angeles, but for communities all over the world that are facing similar threats.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how this disaster just highlights how interconnected everything is, It's not just about fire, it's about climate change, drought, urban planning, social inequality. It's all kind of intertwined.
It really is. And the Hindustan Times, they actually draw a direct link between rising global temperatures and the increased frequency and intensity of these wildfires. It's a reminder that the choices we make today have consequences that, ripple out across the entire globe.
Exactly. And the LA Times points out that while these Santa Ana winds are a natural phenomenon, climate change is potentially making them even stronger and more unpredictable. It's almost like we're playing with fire, literally, by not addressing the root causes of these increasingly volatile weather patterns.
Yeah, you're right. But amidst all this devastation, there are these glimmers of hope,
Yeah.
you know? The articles showcase the resilience of the human spirit, the acts of kindness and community support that emerge during times like these.
Yeah, for sure. The LA Times tells the story of a local veterinarian who opened her clinic to nearly 40 pets from families who had to evacuate. And there are countless examples of neighbors helping neighbors' restaurants, offering free meals to evacuees and first responders, people coming together to donate clothes, supplies, and money to those in need.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, human compassion and solidarity can really shine through.
Absolutely. And while the road to recovery is going to be long and arduous, the articles also highlight the importance of learning from this disaster.
Right. The LA Times calls for better urban planning, creating more defensible spaces around homes, investing in fire-resistant building materials.
It's about being proactive rather than reactive, recognizing that these events are becoming part of our reality and adapting accordingly.
Exactly. And the Yahoo News article quotes a wildfire expert who emphasizes the need for a global shift in mindset. We can't just keep rebuilding in fire-prone areas and expecting different results. We need to rethink our relationship with the environment and take responsibility for our actions.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, this deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to the profound and far-reaching consequences of these fires. It's a stark reminder that we're all interconnected, and the choices we make, both individually and collectively, can have a lasting impact on our communities and our planet.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's a sobering thought, but it's
Yeah.
also empowering in a way,
Uh-huh.
because it means we have the power to make a difference. By understanding the forces at play and working together to find solutions, we can create a future where these disasters are less frequent and less devastating.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your day, I encourage you to think about what you can do, even in a small way, to help build a more resilient and sustainable world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.